Welcome to the Ignite Kidmin podcast. Today we have a very special guest, someone who's been a guiding light for ministry leaders across the country. With over 35 years of experience, Tom Bump is not only a seasoned leader, but also the founder of RestoringLeaders.org, a ministry dedicated to helping leaders recover from burnout and lead with renewed strength. He also is the voice behind the Kid Ministry Collective podcast and the creator of Kid Min Plus, a thriving community for children's ministry leaders. Tom's motto is Live Restored, Lead Renewed. And today we're diving into what that really means. Hi, I'm Pastor Tamara Kraft from Revival Fire for Kids with an Ignite Kidmin podcast. If you're hungry to see kids encounter the glory of God, walk in the power of the Holy Spirit, and become radical followers of Jesus, you're in the right place. So join the journey, and I'll share my story, my experiences, and what the Holy Spirit has taught me along the way. Hold on tight. You never know what God is about to do. So, Tom, welcome to the podcast. You serve churches from 50 to 5,000 members. What led you to start Restoring Leaders?
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be a guest. Yeah, I'm usually on the other side of the microphone, so to speak, of interviewing. So this is fun. But yeah, I started out in ministry, obviously, a long time ago, and I'm a pastor's kid. And I grew up with a dad who had the motto, if not me, then who, which also means you don't have any limits, you don't have any boundaries, you just go and serve, serve, serve. And I found out over the years that was wearing me out mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I also got into serving in some situations where I had a pretty toxic leader. He was a real narcissist, very unhealthy, had unhealthy habits, pushed the staff. I picked up some of those things and I found myself in a very dark place. And every time I looked for help, I searched the internet for someone to help me show me how to get out of this because I kept spiraling. I kept repeating things and it was really getting hard. My family didn't like it. My wife didn't like it. My staff, my team started to realize that there was some open wounds I had from past hurts. And as I started searching, I was out in Yosemite on a hike and really felt like God started saying to me, okay, how long are you going to carry all this stuff with you? And I had what I call the closest thing to a Moses burning bush moment I've ever had in my life, where God literally took me up the mountainside and would not let me cross over this halfway point on a hike because I was carrying things that I shouldn't have been. I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. I had very unhealthy leadership habits. And finally, God said, all right, it's time to let go of all this stuff. So I started unloading and felt this huge release. And it was in those moments that I went, man, there's so many other people I know people who are feeling like I'm feeling, and they don't have this opportunity to come away for a week and hike in Yosemite, and somebody needs to help them. And at first, I just let it drop. And it was a couple years later, I went back and I was talking to a friend of mine who happened to have been on that first hike with me and said, hey, I noticed that you seem to be carrying some stuff. And I said, well, it's because I'm struggling with this next season of ministry and what I should be doing. And he said, maybe God's going to do something new with you. And I went, well, I can't imagine not being a kids pastor, a youth pastor, family pastor. He's like, but maybe this next season is going to look different. And all of a sudden I started realizing, I started thinking as I was hiking by myself, somebody needs to fix this problem of burnout and of leadership hurt and all of these kind of things. And it was in there that God really gave me the vision for starting this ministry of helping leaders, not charging them a dime. It's the world's worst business model. I've had many people tell me that I should be charging for what I do, but I made a commitment, Lord, if you're going to call me to do this, I'm going to be what I couldn't find, because everywhere I looked, I had people offering to help me, but they wanted to charge me $3,000 or $4,000 to get that help. And I thought, oh, that's really nice. I'm a ministry leader struggling. Kids pastors, we get paid $1 million a year, right? That's why we get into it, is for the money. Said no one ever. And I just realized that God gave me something and I was supposed to steward it. And so I said, okay, God, if I'm going to do this, you're going to have to provide. And I started I've worked with over 300 leaders now, or almost 300 leaders. And I just walk with them and help them. It's just been an ongoing ministry that I had no idea where God's going to take it. I still don't know where God's going to take it, but we started a nonprofit and we're in the process of raising more funds so we can do retreats and so that I can continue to do the coaching that I love to do.
Wow, that is a powerful story. I wish you'd been around about 30 years ago when
I
I
hear that a
told
lot.
you a similar story. I had been a children's pastor for 20 years. I'd served under a narcissist pastor and was being pressured by my pastor to do more, 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 more. And
Yep.
one day I just broke and he called me up to lead a child to Christ. And I'm like, something that I did automatically so many years
Yeah.
and just couldn't even get the words out because I was totally burnt out. And then started the journey. And then God called me to start Revival Fire for Kids. I stopped being a children's pastor for the first time, which I was so startled that he would be. In fact, for a while, I was crying out to God, is it because I failed you and all this
Right. Oh,
stuff?
yeah.
And then started Revival Fire for Kids to help other KidMin leaders on their journey.
That is awesome.
So
Love it.
sounds like we are kindred souls.
Yes, for sure. Yep. Yep.
You've created a safe place for leaders to heal and grow. So, what are the common struggles that you see in ministry leaders today?
Ooh, that's a great question. Isolation. I see a lot of leaders, in spite of the 1,000,001 Facebook groups, including my own Kid Ministry Collective group and the Restoring Leaders group. I still see leaders that feel isolated. I also see a lack of margin because they keep taking on more and they don't know how to use the word no. I see a lot of emotional exhaustion. I see a lot of insecurity with leaders about who they are. And then what's happened is that who they are and the job of, I'll call it a job, I mean, even though it's a ministry, it's our vocation. That's a better word. Our vocation and our identities get tagged together and they get entangled. And when that happens, that takes us down a dark path that we should not go. But so many leaders don't know how to untangle all of that. And so they just keep going and going, and they get into this cycle where they get charged up a little bit and then they drain themselves out, and then they get charged a bit and then they drain themselves out. And so I see a lot of that. And then I also see a lot of people who got hurt because somebody in ministry hurt them, said some things critical. It could have been from a volunteer. It could be from a staff person. I'm working on a new book. I wrote Valleys Over Mountains, A Guide Through the Hard Seasons. I wrote that one first, but I actually had started this other book called When Sheep Bite and Shepherds Throw Stones.
Good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
People keep saying, hurry up or get that book written. And I'm like, I know, I'm working on it. But for some reason, God stopped me from writing that first. And I wrote the Valleys Over Mountains first. But I'm writing this to help answer that question of, what do we do when we see all these things happening in our world, whether it's one or multiple things? How do we deal with it when a sheep that we're leading bites us? And how do we deal with it when a shepherd throws stones? Because we end up seeing people walking around as walking wounded with all these hurts and with all these frustrations. And instead of healing, instead of triaging, instead of starting something new for themselves, they just keep walking in that wounded, hoping it's going to go away or hoping it won't happen again. And inevitably it does. And then boom, that's why we're seeing the shortage in children's and family ministries and student pastors, because there's so many leaders that have said, I'm done. I'm done with the church. I'm done with leadership. I'll go find a job, a regular job, and that's what I'm going to do. And they walk away from the calling They walk away from their gifting. And honestly, I think they find themselves even more miserable ultimately because of all that. I just feel like that's what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm trying to help people away from.
Oh, it is so needed. I know you spoke about isolation, and that's one of the biggest problems with children's
Yes.
ministry. A lot of times, children's ministers are always out teaching children. They're invited to the sanctuary to bring their kids into the sanctuary and be
Yep.
fed. And it
Yep.
gets to the point where when they do meet people from the church, the people from the church are saying, "Oh, when did you start coming?" And think they're new because they've never met them,
Yeah.
or things like that keep happening to them, and
Yep.
or they get the well-meaning adults that come to children's church after church and say, "Oh, you missed it. It was such a good service."
Yeah, I've heard that. But then that's when I go, you should have been in here.
That's what I always say too.
Right?
Well, you missed it.
You missed it. I didn't miss anything. I'm right where anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But I so understand what you're saying. I have been through it. I've helped other children's pastors through it. It is
Yeah.
difficult. And it's even worse for children's pastors, I think, than
Yep.
other pastors in
Yep.
ministry.
I think so too.
And children's pastors are expected to do a lot more because they take care of the nursery, the preschool.
Oh, yeah. We're usually managing the largest group of volunteers
Exactly.
is the kids ministry world. Yep.
Absolutely. You also coach through KMC Coaching
Mhm.
and kmccoach.net.
Yep.
So what's your approach to leadership development?
Yeah, it starts with the leader's heart. I'm a heart-based. I think that's where if we're going to heal burnout, it's got to deal with the heart first of the leader. So what we do is we look at the leadership identity. Who did God make you to be? How are you wired? What's your uniqueness? Because every leader is wired differently. And what happens so many times when I see it in younger leaders, I saw it in myself. I saw people up on the stages at conferences. Obviously, we didn't have all the influencers on social media like we do now, but we've got all these kid mini people out there calling themselves influencers, calling themselves coaches, all this. They're not in ministry. They see it as a business model. And so they're jumping into it and doing all this kind of stuff. I'm one of these people that says, I want to serve and help. And so I do things a little bit differently, I think, than a lot of people because I want to deal with the leader's heart. I want to help them get comfortable in their own skin. I want to help them organize their day, their week, their year, the way God wired them to lead it with the vision that is unique to them. I help them stop looking at everybody else and comparing and start looking at how do I exhale the bad stuff and start picking up the right kind of habits that God wants me to have to lead. So I really do try to slowly rebuild a leader. I want them to find out who they are and how they're wired, what's unique. I want to help them define that calling and the vision that God gives them, and then start building the path and the little steps to get them to fulfilling that vision and that dream that God has put on them. Because every church is different, every community is different. And so there is no cookie cutter approach. So everything I do is unique to that person. I do a lot of question asking. I kind of drive people nuts with all the questions I ask before I start coaching because I want to get to know them. I don't make them go through my system because what I did for 30 some years in all these different churches, it probably will not work for them. There might be principles that will work for them, but my job isn't really to tell you how to be a kids pastor. It's to say, what is God putting on your heart? What is he telling you to do? How do I help you obey that? Because that's where it comes down to. And yes, there are some systems and structures that I can copy and paste for you and help you, but I really want you to see the path that God has put. And my job is to help you draw it out and pull it out and go, hey, you're not crazy for thinking that. Go try that. Go ahead, do it. Because if it fails, then you learn what not to do. And I'm good at failing. I'm really good at failing.
Well, I always tell people the success of my children's ministry was I completely didn't know what I was doing when I started. And I would say, "Lord, what do you want me to do?"
Yeah.
I do it. And then I'd say, "Now what do you want me to do?" And
Yep.
I do that. And then
There
I
you
say,
go.
what do you want me to do next? And before I read all the books and went to the conferences, which I eventually did,
Yeah.
I started having a cutting edge children's ministry just because I didn't know what I was doing. And I
Yeah.
asked God to tell me.
Yeah.
And so that's such an awesome way to
Yeah.
approach it. It's like,
Yeah.
what is God telling you? What do you think God's giving you a vision for? And do
Yeah.
it.
And go do. Yep. Yep. That's it. People say, is it really that simple? Yeah. Some of the best ministries, the ministries that grew the most was when I got out of the way of myself and would go ask God, how do I do this? What do you want me to do? How do I build my team and how to recruit? How did I get a full team and a waiting list? Because I went and asked God, who am I supposed to go talk to? I made a list and I went and started asking them and invited them in to step into a greater sense of discipleship by using their gifts and talents in children's ministry. And they would say yes. And those were some of the best ministry, the ministry that drew people to our church. And I had families saying, yeah, this was funny. I never told my senior pastor this because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I had a guy come up and say, your pastor's preaching is okay. His delivery is okay. But what drew us here to your church is your kids' ministry. Your team
Exactly.
loved my kids. They remembered their name the second time we came back. He said, we visited 8 churches in the area. And he said, yours is the only one our kids wanted to go back and visit a second time.
Wow.
Well,
That's
that wasn't me. That was my
exactly.
team. That was because I taught my team how to recognize and see kids and love them the way Jesus would love them, and just to get down on their level and talk to them eyeball to eyeball. And if that means getting down on your knees and looking at them, you do it. And they're the most important person in the room. And I did all that because why? Because I asked God to say, what would you want? What do you value? Well, I know you value children. So you used them as object lessons all the time. So I'm going to value them and I'm going to find a way to serve them at their level and let them have input and let them serve. And yeah, I got out of the way and man, God blew it up. And I can't take any credit. I won't take any credit for any of those kind of things because I knew who was behind it and doing it.
That is so good. I love that because so many times children's ministers are encouraged to create a Disneyland atmosphere, try to compete with the world by doing bigger, better,
Yeah.
etc. And just as far as teaching, just do behavior modification and attach it to Disneyland.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the truth is, building relationships with children, discipling them,
Yeah.
it's the best way to grow a children's ministry. You've recently launched Kidmin Plus, as if you don't have enough to do. So, can you
Yeah.
tell us what that community offers?
It's a monthly membership community. It's $15 a month. So yeah, there's a fee to it, but we don't want anybody to be hindered by that. But we'd love to be a part of it. One of the problems we kept seeing was, again, this isolation. And even though there's 1,000,001 Facebook groups out there, including the Kid Ministry Collective Facebook group, there's a lot of kid ministry groups out there. The problem is people aren't connecting. And then we're also having the same discussion over and over and over again. And we wanted something more. So I went together with a couple friends of mine who are great ministry leaders. They're actually part of the KMC coaching team now. They're also part of the podcast we'll talk about in a little bit. But we decided to create this membership community where we could do live roundtables where we're going to throw out a topic and we want people to come and discuss it and have some fun with it. And we push some strange topics out sometimes because we want to have fun too. And because we need to laugh more as ministry leaders. Sometimes it's too much stress. And so we have live roundtables. We have live coaching where one of us will jump on Zoom for an hour and you can come in and get coached and get encouragement. And we also have a training session where we have a lot of video courses for the healthy leader, healthy teams, and healthy ministries, because that's our 3 pillars that we build around. And so we're adding more videos, and they're all short, bite-sized pieces because every ministry leader is too busy. So we don't do an hour-long training. They're all short 10, 15-minute snips. So you can digest it, put it into practice. And then we have a toolbox where we're putting up all sorts of different resources and adding to it. We started it as a monthly thing. Now we're just going to make it a toolbox, and it's going to have checklists and manuals and guides. And we're just going to be allowing members to pour into it because our phrase in the Plus is we're better together. And we really believe if we can draw people together and really start the dialogue, that's part of the new thing with the podcast is we want to have conversations. We want to help children's ministry start thinking new. We're running old models in the church. During COVID, I saw amazing creativity burst. And then COVID was declared done, and we all rushed back to what we used to do because it was the comfy coat that we all loved that we should have thrown away back in 1975. Okay, probably I'm dating myself. But anyway, we hold on to that coat too long. It's already got holes in it. It's a little raggedy. There's probably some moths living in there, and it's time to let it go. And so in the Plus, we're trying to break out and say, let's make a new one. Let's create a new coat. In fact, we'll add some heat to it, and we'll add some snack pockets and a cooling pocket. And so that's a fun way of describing the Plus is we want this to be a fun place where people can engage and learn and grow, and we want you to go out being a better leader.
And if your coat has flannel graph figures in it, it's fun to get rid of it.
Shoot. Now, hold it. I'll push back on that. I still use flannel graph.
Actually, I do too with preschoolers and toddlers, but not with the older.
I actually went to a summer camp as a camp speaker, and I pulled out a little flannel graph board that I made. And it's just a little handheld one. I made this thing in 1987. So now I really dated myself. And I taught this lesson about these pirates that come to steal and destroy. And those kids, I thought they were going to melt down. I thought they were going to melt down because I stuck that first pirate on the board. And this kid thought I was doing a magic trick. I was doing an illusion because he's like, how's he making that stick? Those kids remembered that. I had counselors coming up to me on Friday going, my kids talked about those pirates all week long. They were like, I hear Sir Sinful calling out on you. And, Captain, I can't. I heard him get to you. And they're calling. It was a simple little flannel graph story that I got from Child Evangelism Fellowship years ago so I'm telling people, don't throw away the old because you bring it out. These kids have never seen anything like it. So anyway, that was a side loop.
I stand corrected. Maybe we all got to pull out our flannel graph.
You can, if you find the right way.
The kids today, it's something completely different.
It is. They've never seen it. So
it's just like the old songs. I mean, there's new songs with Yancey and Kid Worship and all this other stuff, but they don't know the old songs. And when you bring out an old song, they're like, oh, that's really cool.
And there's usually some really good theology that needs to be taught.
Yeah, I brought up this old song. It's bubbling in my soul. And the kids went crazy over it. And that song has to be back in like the 1930s.
I sang it as a kid, so.
Well, I did too, but I guess we're dating ourselves.
That's all right. I just tell them I'm a well-seasoned leader, so
that's right.
I can be a little sweet. I can be a little salty. It's all good.
Yep. So your podcast, Kids Ministry Collective, has become a go-to resource, and I recommend that children's leaders go to my podcast and your podcast and all the children's ministry podcasts.
That's right.
That will feed into them and help them have new ideas and new ways of looking at things. So I definitely believe that children's leaders on this podcast should check your podcast out.
I hope so. Yeah.
So what inspired you to start it?
A good buddy of mine, another kids pastor named Ron Brooks, he and I started a long time ago actually doing a live internet radio show. That's where the Kid Ministry Collective was born. There was a thing called Blog Talk Radio, and we hosted it on there, and we used to do a live radio show every Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. We even had a live chat room going, which was very distracting because I get easily distracted. And so you're watching people chat and you're trying to discuss things and talk. And sometimes it was just Ron and I. Other times we brought guests on, and we did several hundred episodes. We were pretty faithful for many years doing that. Well, then Ron had to step aside for ministry. And so I hit pause for about 2 years. And then Ron was like, "You've heard about these podcasts coming out, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I actually thought about restarting the KMC." And because that's what we'd call it, the KMC or the Kid Ministry Collective. And I said, "I think I'm going to do it." I said, "I've been feeling that itch to get back into it." So I just started recording and I started dropping new episodes every Monday. We're up over 300 episodes now and 150 some thousand downloads. And so just a couple weeks ago, as we're recording this episode with you, we launched officially, we went 300 episodes and now we're just into season 2.
Wow.
And then,
That is amazing.
yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. So now we're calling it the KMC Collective Podcast. I have a leader named Cole Rice and Ben Folks. They're my co-hosts, and we've brought back the virtual roundtable, as we call it. And we are having conversations. It's not an interview podcast anymore. We'll bring some guests on and have them, and we're going to put them on not really the hot seat, but the center chair, as we're going to call it, and say, we're going to ask a few questions, but we're going to start conversations. And again, it's just like the plus. We want to start conversations with children's ministry. We have a God of unlimited resources and unlimited creativity. And I'm just one of those people that's wired like, why do I have to stay in this box? And Ben is my what if guy. Ben will be like, what if? And Cole's like, well, I know, but what about that? And so the three of us come together and we're just 2 episodes in. We'll be recording our 3rd episode, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope people will come check it out. I mean, yes, go check some of the old episodes out. We've got a lot of great things that are still there and online. But boy, this new version, I think, is even better than what we used to do, because we just want to push the kid ministry world forward and say, hey, we are better together. And we have a God that has unlimited things available to us. So let's tap into it and let's start dreaming again, and let's break free from the cynicism of, well, nobody cares about kids ministry. And we're pushing back on the negative talk and saying, we're done hearing that. We're done talking about it. Yes, we understand it's present. Yes, we understand it's there. It's hard to recruit. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do that. But we want to break free from that and help leaders start going, what if, and why couldn't we? And how about? And so that's what the conversations are all about in this new podcast.
That's great. And when it comes to recruiting children's ministers, one mistake that a lot of children's ministers do is, oh, we need people back there. We don't have enough people. We might have to close it down. And by the time they're done, everybody's like, there's nothing happening.
Yeah. Who wants to join a sinking ship?
Yeah, I don't want to be involved in that. Where if you're talking it up, oh, we don't allow everybody back there, but we've been watching you and we think that you'd be a great fit for this ministry that's so important.
Preach, sister.
That's the way to recruit children.
That is the way to recruit. That's exactly what I teach my coaching students. Is it's all about how you come into it and inviting people into something big. People want to be a part of something amazing, transformational. They want to know they're adding value, that they're having something that's worth taking the time out of their week after a busy week to spend that hour with those kids. And yes, if you bring that kind of conversation forward, people are going to say yes a whole lot more than they're going to say no.
That's right. Absolutely. They want to feel like they're doing something important.
Yep.
So in one of your recent episodes, you focused on leading through hard seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all been through those hard seasons. I know I have. So what advice would you give to leaders who feel stuck or discouraged?
Yeah. Yep. I did that episode. Again, that was one that I hadn't planned on doing, but all of a sudden I was like, I got to do this. I have to do this. Part of it was because I kept seeing some people out there who were selling products and advertising them as, this will help solve your burnout problem. And to be honest with you, Tamara, it made me mad, because I'm like, I don't market for burnout. It just doesn't sit right with me. And then I started reading all of the people. I just kept going to different Facebook groups and seeing all the discouragement and people that were just so tired and frustrated and down because they don't recruit well and they can't figure out how to do it. And so they think they got to go buy somebody's volunteer recruitment system and spend thousands of dollars. And it's like, no, you don't. And then these people that are going, I'm discouraged because my pastor just told me no, and it's hard. And I'm like, look, I understand. Where did Jesus say ministry would be a cakewalk? Where did he say there would be pixie dust and unicorns all over our path? He said, no, the path's narrow and it's hard. Look at what the disciples went through. Look at every prophet in the scripture. They faced opposition, they faced hardship. They did do it alone sometimes. But what did God always do? He always showed up. When Elijah ran off after winning well, he didn't win it. We all know God won the battle on the mountaintop of the prophets of Baal. But he saw this great victory. He saw this amazing thing. And what's he do? Oh, Jezebel's trying to hurt me. Oh. And he takes off and runs and he goes and crawls under this thing and he says, God, take my life. I'm just worthless. I'm the only one. Poor, poor, pitiful me.
Isn't that about the truth? When we lost ourselves and this great victory happens, that's where the most.
Oh, I can guarantee you the enemy hit me hard after Bible school when we had 15 kids get saved. Right. God, the enemy hit me after seeing a great fall kickoff and then having a couple of volunteers go, well, I don't like this, and they quit. And then I get all upset because I'm a terrible leader. And what did I see? I saw God show up to Elijah and say, rest, eat, now rest some more. Now follow me and I'm going to show you something.
Take a nap after a great victory.
Yep. And so I just decided to do this podcast to say, hey, look, get simple, get real, and start to ask God, what is it you want me to do? And then I'm going to obey it and stick to it. How do you get through the hard season? You don't fall for every shiny penny. You don't jump and go buy the new solution. You don't flip and change curriculums just because you're bored or you're discouraged with it. Know the enemy's going to come at you on blast after those events. And put on the armor, get a team to pray around you and over you on a regular basis. Get into a community that can say, hey, I got your back. We're going to pray over you. We're going to help you. You're not crazy for thinking about doing that. And I get what you're going through, that you can't do ministry alone or the enemy is going to destroy you. And so I wanted to do that podcast to say, hey, look, here's the steps. Do these few things and God's going to show up and you're going to find rest for your soul and you're going to find hope and you're going to find that dream and you can keep going. And so, again, I'm just all about encouraging leaders and helping them see what's possible on the other side of that hard season. Well, again, I'm not trying to promote my book. Please don't want your listeners to think I'm just trying to sell a book, because you don't need to buy my book. You just need to get into the Bible. So how about that for a sales pitch? Don't buy my book, read the Bible. But if you feel like you want some human encouragement, go buy this. The reason why I titled it Valleys Over Mountains is because we get so hooked on being on the mountain. We want to always be up there on the mountain experiences. But what I found is hiking in the valley was where the real beauty was at. Like I said, I've been out in Yosemite. That's part of why I wrote. There's pictures in the book that I took from Yosemite and the hikes. I've been out there 5 times on hikes for a week-long thing for a spiritual renewal with some other kids pastors. And when you're standing on a mountain 3,000 feet up above the valley, it looks pretty, but you can't see all the flowers. And you don't see the runoff from the waterfall that's just trickling over some rocks. You don't see that kind of beauty up there. It's gorgeous. The mountain peaks are amazing. The snow, the birds flying around, and the valley views are gorgeous. But the real beauty is when you're walking through that. And I wanted people to see that even in the hard seasons, if you look and you pause, you realize that God's the God that made the mountaintops, but he also made the beauty in the valley. And when you walk with him in the valley, you're going to see a whole lot more of healing and grace and mercy and resourcefulness and rest. And valleys are beautiful. So I'm not afraid of going into a valley because I know that God's got something great for me there. I just have to walk with him.
That's awesome. That is so awesome and so well needed. And Tom, your ministry is such a blessing to children's leaders. But before we wrap up, what final encouragement would you like to give children's ministry leaders listening today?
My friends, I would tell you, we need you more than ever. You're a warrior. You're a kingdom worker. You're valued by the Most High God. And this generation needs you. The kids need you. The parents need you. Your team needs you. And they need you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I have a mentor who will ask me, have you ever been closer to Jesus at any time other than this moment? Meaning you need to fall in love with Jesus so much that people are drawn to that light and that you can lead them to do that same thing. And they're going to need you to rest. They're going to need you to renew. They're going to need you to restore so that you can be a healthy leader who leads that healthy team, that builds a healthy ministry that impacts your community and our world. And I know you can do this. And I'm cheering you on and I'm standing with you. And if there's ever anything I can do, I always tell people, please don't hesitate to reach out because I'm here to serve the kingdom. That's what God's called me to do in this season of my life. And that's what I am determined to do until God says, time's up, graduation day, come on home.
Thank you so much for those important words. For those who want to connect with you, check out restoringleaders.org, kidminplus.net, and kmcoach.net. And you can also listen to the Kid Ministry Collective or KMC podcast on Apple, iHeart, or Podbean. Yep. And I will have all those links for you in the description, so you don't have to remember all those.
Yay!
Make sure you check them out. And Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been such a blessing.
Thank you, Tamara. It's an honor that you'd invite me on. I enjoyed this very, very much, to share my passion, to share what God has called me to do. And I look forward to listening to some of your episodes and sharing it with the Kid Ministry Collective community because I love promoting kingdom resources and getting people connected. And I'll even say this, if somebody needs me, my email is tom@tombump.com. And that's bump like a bump in a road or a speed bump or anyway, I'm used to having fun. I always tell people, you'll never forget my name because it's a big yellow sign that has my name right on it. They're paid for by the government. It's not often you get that free from the government, but I have a sign. Actually, there's one over my shoulder. You can't see on camera, but it actually says bump on it. But if I can serve anyone, please reach out and help. If you can't find anybody to talk to, I'm always happy to talk, as you can tell.
And I will have that email in the description as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Ignite KidMin podcast. If this episode encouraged you, share it with a fellow leader and subscribe for more insights on equipping the next generation. Until next time, keep the fire burning. Bye. If you enjoyed this Ignite KidMin podcast, subscribe and click the bell or notification button. If you would like more resources and curriculum for your children's ministry or would like to schedule an event, check out revivalfireforkids.com. Consider becoming a patron and receive monthly Zoom calls, online support, and children's ministry resources at revivalfireforkids.com/ignite. Until next time.